Hey everyone, it's hashtag Malkin Live. I've got an epic panel for you today. America First Senate candidates who are going to talk to you all about their campaigns, what they're doing in their states to raise awareness of so many of the fundamental existential issues that unite all of us, and talk in general about the atmosphere in the swamp with regard to many of these important policy issues. So I'm going to bring them in right away. Hey everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. We've got Lauren Witzke, who's running for Senate in Delaware, Tricia Flanagan, who's running for Senate in New Jersey, and of course, everyone knows him. He's been an OG. Can I say that? OG.
You can say it. Yeah.
Of the fight for American sovereignty and borders and sanity in immigration and enforcement policy, Kris Kobach. Thanks to all of you for your time. There's so much going on, and I want to drill down right into the fight that's been going on now for more than a month on protecting American workers in the age of a pandemic. And we all know that President Trump had unveiled an immigration ban that was, well, let's just say less than adequate initially, but which was recently expanded to include many of the pipelines that are harming American workers. So finally, we got some movement on things like H1 and the J1 program, et cetera. But there were a lot of these avenues of bringing in these foreign workers who are helping to suppress the wages and take the jobs of American workers that were not touched. Lauren, I'm going to start with you because I was looking at the website of the Delaware Public Radio news outlet, and there's a huge headline. This is just from a couple of days ago, bemoaning the fact that Trump's freeze on H-1B work visas disproportionately affects Indians. And it starts out with an anecdote about a woman named Sunny Kumar Harpara, who awoke in India to news of a temporary ban on his exact type of visa, the H-1B visa. Quote, I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I saw the messages. I almost started crying. It talks about his history, how he got here. He earned a master's degree in the US and landed a job as an electrical engineer in Irvine. Went back to India to convert his student visa to an H-1B, sponsored by his company. The pandemic hit, his paperwork was delayed, and we're all supposed to be very alarmed, upset, and outraged by this. What's your response?
Okay, so I think we need to kind of take a look at the Delaware working class, the status of them right now. So currently, Delaware, we lost our DuPont jobs. We lost our GM jobs. The DuPont started falling apart as soon as they started bringing in H-1B workers to replace the workers that we had in the tech industry there. And that was just the beginning of the end for them. We've become a Rust Belt state. Americans, actually Delawareans, young Delawareans aren't staying here. There's no opportunity here. Our wages are so low, and the white collar jobs that we do have available are being taken from us. I think it was 4,000 H-1Bs came in 2019. We have less than 1 million people in this state. It's 900,000 approximately people. And it has become a state that nobody wants to stay in. There's no way for us to get jobs or good paying jobs as it is. So I really, I understand her concern, of course, but my concern is with putting the American working class people in the state of Delaware first, and our graduates first as well. JP Morgan in the city of Wilmington, that's a big avenue for jobs, especially our college graduates. We have University of Delaware, we have Go to Become College, and our students are graduating from here and they aren't staying because there's no opportunity. So it's long past due time that we start making those jobs available for Americans and great wages for their work as well, especially young Americans.
Right. You're running against Chris Coons, a longtime fixture in Delaware Democrat politics. Tell us more about his record on these issues.
Yeah, so recently, actually just as early as 2019, U.S. Senator Chris Coons was co-sponsoring the S-386, which will replace, which will result in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of U.S. tech workers. I mean, that was already a problem even before COVID-19, American worker displacement. Actually, I interview them all the time, and it is absolutely heartbreaking what happens to these American workers who their livelihoods depend on these jobs, and they're being sold out for cheap foreign labor that will work way longer for way less. And not to mention the fact that these bills like the S386 make college graduates compete against cheap foreign labor for way less money. And it is destroying the American working class dream. And Kris Coons, I call him the H-1B visa fanboy because he absolutely loves it. He loves this cheap foreign labor. He does not care that the state of Delaware has become number 2 in the nation in opioid abuse, because there's absolutely no hope here. There's no opportunity for work. And my generation is dying over here, and it isn't staying. And we're not getting married. We're not having children. We don't have the opportunity to do so. And it's all for the big sellout of cheap foreign labor. And I've had enough, it's just something every time I find these bipartisan bills that he's writing or working and co-sponsoring with, they're all resulting in the displacement of the American worker or pushing our wages down or anything like that. And he prides himself on being bipartisan. However, he's sold out to big globalist interests, and it happens every single time. And we, the American people, get left behind.
And a lot of those big globalists are supporting not only Kris Coons, but as you mentioned, many of his bipartisan partners on S386, people like Mike Lee, for example. What has been the response, any level of support among the GOP establishment in Delaware to your candidacy?
So I didn't really expect much of their help when I hopped into this. However, they've been good to me. They've been good to me, so far. So
good. That is good to hear. Tricia, a lot of people, and I grew up in New Jersey. Yeah, and so the idea that there would be America First Republican candidates in any of these races is always just a delight and a surprise. What prompted you to get in the race?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of the unexpected politician in the race, but that's how I believe our founding forefathers envisioned our country. Those citizen candidates giving of their time, their talent, their expertise, and going to Washington to make a difference, to craft legislation, and then go back and live the fruits thereof. I think, the way we got the swamp was these career politicians, and I saw that there was a serious problem in New Jersey. I come from the tech world to a certain extent. I started my career as a biochemist in oncology and then went into pharmaceutical business. I've been in every nook and cranny of it, whether it be R&D, manufacturing, or marketing, and innovative blockchain marketing. I spent time in artificial intelligence development, and I personally suffered the infringement on American innovation. I saw, time and again that graduates in New Jersey, we're proud to graduate the most tech workers, most engineers of any state in the country, but by and large, they're out of work because we're not only bringing in students on that OPT program that really has to be covered by President Trump's extension. I'm fighting for that. But then when we look at the H-1B visa assault, we have 62% of the jobs in my state going to foreign workers, going to these temporary workers on the H-1B visa status. And when we look at the dynamics in New Jersey, it will only spread. And I really wanted to step up and protect American workers. I'm the America First candidate in this race in New Jersey, the only America First choice in the GOP primary, and I'm fighting for American workers with 45 million plus American workers out of jobs. This is not the time to be looking at bringing more foreign work in. We have to stand up and fight for America, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
I want to read to you from an Open Borders website. Again, this article was just published yesterday. And it's headlined, OPT visa holders at risk over coronavirus layoffs. I mean, there's nearly 50 million American workers that have been laid off and are jobless. But this is the focus of this particular website. And it begins, when Yassine Barahuma lost his job as a software engineer at ADP in April, he knew he would have a harder time than most finding new employment. It wasn't that he was unqualified. At 26, he had a software engineering degree from the University of Oklahoma, a master's in computer science from NJIT, and had been living in New Jersey since 2017. He's originally from Tunis, Tunisia, came to the U.S. in 2013, so 7 years ago, on an F1 student visa after getting a rowing scholarship for his undergrad studies. He's got family that is still back in Tunis. When he graduated, he got a work visa through optional practical training, a program that allows students to work in the field of their degree after they finish their studies. And since 2016, more than 600,000 others have received work permits through this program, which was intended to be an educational program that trained people here in the United States and then sent them back to their home countries. Tricia, a lot of people, when you talk about these acronyms, their eyes glaze over, and it is not, concrete to them the impact that an administratively created program like OPT actually has on the best and brightest workers in America. But you come from the tech field. I guess my question is, you're running because you want to represent, this most prized demographic in the work sector. But who's representing you in the swamp when all of the moneyed forces, all the Open Borders Inc. forces are the ones who support bringing in the people who are undermining workers like you? That's for you, Tricia.
I just lost the audio. Yeah, I just lost the audio at the end there, but I think you're asking who's the current swamp representative in my state. And if I'm not mistaken on that question, I can clearly identify him. It's Cory Booker. We have a very unique situation in New Jersey. Conservative Republicans represent 56% of the voting universe. We're blue by voting turnout, not by voter demographic. But we have zero representation at the federal level. We have Cory Booker and Bob Menendez, two of the most corrupt senators in our country. And the problem is that Cory Booker is for open borders. He's not addressing these national security issues, and he's specifically not addressing this H-1B visa problem. In fact, he is part of that swamp response that's opening our borders. What we have to do is coalesce as conservatives in New Jersey, and we have to make sure, it starts in this primary that we have on July 7th here in my state. I'm up against 4 opponents, and I'm the only one that is standing against the practical aspects of this problem. Like, I'm the only one that is fighting against Senate Bill 386, be a job killer that will open up this system, not close it down. And when we get to the general election on November 3rd to take on Cory Booker, if we don't have a strong Republican, a strong conservative like myself, who knows how to navigate these waters and who's offering practical solutions to fight back, we can kiss American jobs goodbye. I'm asking people to fight with Flanagan because I'm fighting for you, I'm fighting for America, and I'm supporting everything that we stand for as a country against this very, very important issue.
Absolutely. Kris, you've been doing this a long time. And, we've seen an evolution, I think, in understanding on, not just the national security and public safety impacts of mass migration, all aspects of it, but now economic security as well. How is the H-1B program affecting workers in Kansas?
Happy to answer the question. Let me first apologize for being in my T-shirt in my pickup. We are on the campaign trail in Kansas between campaign events, and so we tried to squeeze this in. I'm glad the iPhone works. So
yes.
Anyway, thanks. Thank you, Michelle, for hosting this. The H-1B is so Kansas population is 3 million. The H-1 we have about 15,000 H-1B workers in Kansas. And I knew this in the abstract, knowing that they work in the telecom industry and in the aviation industry. Wichita has a huge aviation hub. But that I saw this in a very personal way. Just in the last month, I've met 2 American individuals who have lost their jobs to, in one case, the guy lost his job. In the other case, the guy was telling me about a friend who lost his job. 2 H-1B workers. One is in Sprint, which you guys, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Sprint. It's one of the, mobile phone companies. That's based in Overland Park, Kansas. They've got a huge campus there. And I did not realize the scale of it, but we're talking hundreds of American workers who earn about $110,000 a year are being replaced by H-1Bs from India who are being paid $70,000 a year. And this guy was there with his daughter, and he was telling me how the H-1B, they live in a single family neighborhood. He's now unemployed, and the H-1B workers are in an apartment building that's right on the edge of the neighborhood, and that's where they all live. And so they're literally, Americans are watching, they're training their replacements. That really happens, and they are watching the Indian H-1B workers move into the apartment building right next to the neighborhood that they no longer can afford to pay the mortgage on. And so it's very real. And then talked to another guy who lost his job to an H-1B worker in the aviation industry in Wichita. So it went from being abstract to me to very personal, meeting the people who've lost their jobs. And it's it's happening right now, and it's happening during this COVID crisis too. For goodness sake, the companies are still replacing Americans with H-1B workers when you've got 40 million plus Americans out of work. So I think President Trump's extension of the original executive order adding H-1Bs is a really important step. It's relief to the end of the year, but hopefully it continues beyond that, because we know this H-1B problem has been around for a very, very long time.
Yes.
Where they are replacing Americans when there are many, many Americans who are available, who are already in those jobs, who are coming out of STEM programs at universities and ready for those jobs, and the H-1Bs are getting them instead. So it's happening, it's real. And I'll tell you this, Michelle, too, just to deviate a bit from H-1B, go to H-2B.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in my race, my opponent, so this seat has been in Republican hands for 100 years. So whoever wins this primary should win the general. I'm neck and neck with a person Lou Dobbs calls a rhino. We'll use Lou's word for him. But he was one of the 38 House Republicans who signed that letter to President Trump asking for a continuation of the H-2B program. So another 83,000, give or take, H-2Bs. And thank goodness President Trump rejected their demands. But you've got a primary where this H-2B issue is actually one of the focal issues in the primary. In fact, we're running an ad right now on broadcast in Kansas that talks about how my opponent asked Trump, for more H-2B workers. President Trump, thank goodness, said no, and how I stand with Trump on this. But it's interesting how, certainly illegal immigration has been an issue in many of my past campaigns, and we've run ads on it. But because you have the rhinos and the left wing of the Republican Party asking for more H-1B, H-2B workers, now we're seeing, this is the first time in all my campaigns, we're talking about a legal immigration program at the center of one of our commercials. So it's real, it's happening, and it's on the air in Kansas right now.
It's a huge shift. It's a huge development that more and more people within the mainstream of the Republican Party and a lot of dissidents are understanding this impact. I wrote a book in 2015 with John Miano, who's been one of the stalwart lawyers on this, representing American workers. And people still don't seem to fathom the gravity of the situation, but also the breadth of it. Because, you can educate them about H-1B, but then OPT and CPT pop up. And then all of the ways that all of the other alphabet programs are being exploited to get around the nominal limits on H-1B visas, like OPT that Tricia mentioned, B1 and B2 tourist visas, and the L1 transfer program for all of these companies that are bringing in their top executives, foreign executives, into the country. And a lot of this too, the danger with these other temporary visas, like for example, B1 and B2, Kris, and you've dealt with this. I mean, you were inside the swamp. You know the problems with visa overstays, for example, and the lack of any kind of progress on a functional, meaningful, effective visa overstay mechanism. Yep. So it just seems like it's intractable, because every little inch that we have to fight for example, it took more than a month to get these basic programs covered with the extension on the ban. And meanwhile, people are still pouring in. I mean,
right.
And there are not enough people in the Senate, certainly, with R's by their name who get it either. I mean, please tell me that this is not an impossible task.
Well, I mean, look, for the first time, we have a president who gets it. And, you have to give the president credit. A lot of people in the White House were leaning on him not to extend the moratorium to temporary workers. Yeah. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, no friends of the American worker, They were certainly leaning on the White House. They of course squealed and howled when President Trump extended it to the four temporary work categories that he did. They're of course endorsing my primary opponent. No surprise there. So yeah, it's we've always faced an uphill battle, but at least we're making some progress now, and at least the president understands it. And I'm sure that if we get there to the Senate, we'll have to it'll be a battle there too. We have so many Republicans who just don't get it, but at least the president does, and has shown that with this order. Because I didn't know which way it was going to go.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that his instinct is to protect the American worker, and that's very clear.
Yes.
He had to push back against a lot of pressure to render that decision that he did.
Yeah, and Lauren, that pressure continues, right? I mean, we've seen, but when we know all the back channels and what's going on in the swamp right now is those forces, the lobbyists, the corporate interests are doing everything they can to lean on the Kushner wing of the White House. And all of you, Lauren, Kris, Tricia, have all been endorsed by one of the leading grassroots workers groups, the American Workers Coalition, that is, really trying to be and they're succeeding at being a new force in American politics. What do you think about the future of the America First movement post-Trump, Lauren?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Also to talk about the American Workers Coalition, there is absolutely no reason that we should have advocates that have to fight for American workers. I see comments all the time, like, do we have to hire a lobbyist to lobby on behalf of the American worker? And that's what it's come to. And it never should be like that. Since the beginning of my campaign, I've been running on an immigration moratorium, netting at zero. And I feel like that is something that we really need right now. Mass immigration has gotten out of hand. And if we have politicians who are willing to talk about the real issues, 1.1 million legal migrants a year is way too many. I'd like to limit that to about 200,000. And most of these people are coming in unfiltered. And that is a fact. And if America wants to continue to be America, then they certainly need to grab hold of that 2016 Trump-esque that platform and roll with it. And we have to continue to put America first. We have to put American workers first, because selling out is not working for us. It hasn't been working for us. We're now a global leader in opioid abuse, single parenthood. All this is like redundant of not being able to have a job, have fair wages for your work. And we have to start putting Americans first, or America will cease to exist as we know it.
Absolutely. Tricia, as long as I've been waging these types of battles and illuminating the detrimental impact of mass migration on America, of course, I'm sure that all of us have had to combat this accusation that somehow we're racist, we're bigoted, we're xenophobic, et cetera, and yet my experience has been over the last quarter century that it's a wide diversity of American citizens who have been calling attention to this. I mean, thanks to the work of the American Workers Coalition, I've interviewed a broad range of American medical school grads, for example, IT workers from all walks of life, all races. How do you deal with that charge? And has it been something that's come up in your campaign?
Yeah. I mean, they've been great, and I'm so honored by that endorsement. And I think, what I've been working on with them and looking forward to, I believe when we get to the Senate, I've launched a Constitution Caucus initiative that is going to cover a lot of aspects of protecting American citizens, American workers' rights. And I think part and parcel of that has to be a focus on preserving American innovation, because that's another thing that's being lost in this whole mix is, when these outside workers come in, I suffered this personally, where an innovative product that I had developed got replaced and commandeered by outside workers brought in on the H-1B visa program. And so we are losing, it's not just an IP issue, it's not just a patent or American ingenuity issue, it's also a national security issue. When we look at data going offshore, I mean, there are so many elements of this to unpack. And I'm also for consequences. I'm also for developing within that Constitution Caucus initiative that I've launched. I'm for making sure that there are reparations for American workers who have been displaced and who have been harmed by this unfair and truly backdoor way around our legal immigration system. When we put all of that together and we have strong voices like we have right here, that's going to affect the change at the legislative level to make sure that when we tee up that legislative permanence and when we have a president who's ready and open to sign that legislation, now we have firm, swift action that will have some bite and some teeth into it. We have to make sure that we address this issue in 2020. If we don't, we will never, I fear we won't have another opportunity. This is our year. This is our time. It's time for America first. And I think that's why we're all fighting so hard.
Yeah, for sure. Two national security related questions for you, Kris. One on the continued flow of F1 student visa holders into the country at a time when the Justice Department keeps announcing new charges against both American professors as well as H-1Bs, F1s from China involved in breaches and research being stolen and sent back to China, CCP agents involved in all of this, exploiting many of these foreign pipelines, whether it's students or workers. And second, a related question on an issue that Tricia just brought up with protecting data and where you stand on data localization laws, how that has any impact on Kansas and just in general, the problem with outsourcing all of this critical data, whether it's health data, IT data, or otherwise.
Well, to take the first question first, as you remember, Michelle, since you were writing about it at the same time I was in the Justice Department,
yes.
The 19 hijackers of 9/11, if I remember the numbers correctly, approximately 16 or 17 of them came in on a B tourist visa, and one or two came on an F student visa. These have been exploited by terrorists, by people who are trying to harm the United States for many, many years. And as many people may not know, of those 19 hijackers, and this gets to an earlier point you made, Michelle, of the 19 hijackers, 5 overstayed their visas. And of the 5 who overstayed, get this, 4 were stopped by local law enforcement for traffic infractions. So had the police officers known that those 4 individuals that they were standing next to, writing a citation, that they were illegally in the country, and had the officers known that they had the full authority to make an arrest and turn that person over to the then INS, we could have taken 4 of the 19 hijackers off of the playing field. And here's one more fact: of those 4 that we could have apprehended, 3 were pilots.
That's right.
3 were pilots. So if the police officers had that information and known about the overstay, we could have 3 of the planes would not have taken off. Anyway, it remains a problem. The tourist visa, the B visa is so easy to get. The F visa, again, these things are handed out like candy to foreign students, and there's very little scrutiny as to whether a person may be involved or have connections to terrorist organizations, or in the case of China, may even have connections to the Chinese Communist Party, apparatus. So I think it remains a huge security threat, and we have to recognize that not only do we have Islamist adversaries still trying to come to the United States, now we have a much more adversarial relationship with China. And so I think it's highly likely that we will continue to see B and F visas used by individuals coming into the United States trying to do harm to the United States. And I would have hoped that we would be further down the road here 19 years after 9/11, but I fear that these programs could be exploited again, and probably already being exploited again. We just don't know who the individuals are. So it's a very good question. I will say this though, that the Trump Department of Homeland Security is focused on it, and they are more security minded certainly than Obama's Department of Homeland Security. Of course, that's not saying much, but they really are. They really are doing what they can. I know a lot of the people in the Department of Homeland Security, as do you, Michelle. They're certainly working hard to try to close these gaps. But those 2 visas have been a platform used by terrorists, and I'm afraid they continue to be in the future. Hopefully not. To your other question about localization, of our data. I think it's a great it's something that Congress needs to focus on. And I would hope that after this COVID episode, and with a renewed focus in Congress on how China poses such a threat to us, and with the sort of shocking awareness that so many Americans learned for the first time that 97% of our antibiotics are produced in China,
Yeah.
that you would think Americans would now be saying, okay, and I believe they are, say, okay, now is the time we bring all strategic assets back to the United States, and if there is a danger of something that is valuable, technological data leaving the United States, let's take measures to protect it. So I would hope a localization bill would have legs, certainly among the Republican Party, but maybe even with some Democrats. So maybe I'm overly optimistic there, but I think we could get that done.
Yeah, sounds good. We just have a couple minutes left, and I want to have everyone give a wrap up on what your status is on the campaign, how people can help, volunteer, and we'll go Tricia, Lauren, and then end with Kris. Tricia, you first, and I'm going to pull up the information for your website and your Twitter handle. People can find you at flanaganforsenate.org and at New Day for New Jersey. So go ahead. Tricia, I don't know if you can hear me.
And I apologize. I think I've lost almost audio.
Oh, okay.
Here.
So
were you asking about final comments?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
My apology. I can barely hear, but in terms of final comments, I mean, I thank you for putting all the direct contact information. This is a battle for the heart and soul of our country and for each of our states. This is something that we are all passionate about. And I think that we have a unique opportunity in 2020 to make sure that we not only get our president the support, the congressional and U.S. Senate support that he is going to need to fully accomplish America's agenda, but he is going to require our unified voices to fight long and hard for this battle. It can be won. We're fighting for the best of causes for our American workers. And this will serve us in all of our states and in America for generations to come. We want to make sure that New Jersey and everything we fight for is something that we can be proud of again. And that means putting our might behind our great American workers. I'm fighting for that. I know you all are. And thank you for having me on today and for fighting on this important cause.
You bet. As a fellow Jersey girl, I'm glad to see you standing up. We need more of you. We need to clone you. And best of luck with your campaign. Lauren, you are at laurenwitzke.com and very active. One of my favorite Twitter feeds at Lauren Witzke DE. And I wanted to make sure to mention too that, I was just so grateful to see you standing up for the monument in your hometown. You were one of the first to even show up to do one of these things. More and more people now are being emboldened to do it. And of course, the fight over sovereignty and sane immigration policies is part of this larger battle for the heart and soul of the historic American nation. So give people an idea of how they can help with your campaign and where you are right now.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Well, as I think it was Kris mentioned before, it's America First this year, or we're never going to have the opportunity again. And that's what's at stake right now. And people need to recognize that, and they need to rally behind the America First candidates. Currently, my primary is going awesome. I'm way ahead, and we're ready to win this. And we're ready to take on Chris Coons in November and light him up and take him out. So you can contribute, please, to my campaign at www.laurenwitzke.com. I will fight for you. I will fight for America First, and I will never compromise on our values as Christian conservatives, because too many people in the GOP have been compromising, and it has led us nowhere. It has led us to nothing but destruction, American worker displacement, and low wages and hopelessness. So vote for Witzke in order to get the America First agenda in the Senate, and I'm going to get there. So please contribute to my campaign. Every little bit helps. I am going up against the Democrat machine, well funded by he's a part of the India caucus. You know what I'm saying? So he has plenty of resources, and I'm running a grassroots campaign. So please hop on, please contribute, and please follow my Twitter page, Lauren Witzke DE, as well. Michelle, thank you so much for the opportunity. You have no idea how much I appreciate this. Thank you to the American Workers Coalition as well for everything everything they do for American workers. Oh, and I wanted to give a shout out to my unmatched doctors as well, who have just been, I love them. They are absolutely awesome. And I just wanted to give them a shout out as well, and know that I will fight for you guys. There's no reason that doctors in the United States are not able to get residencies and have jobs. And I will fight for you as well. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Awesome. That's great, Lauren. And just for folks, if you haven't watched the stream that I did with unmatched American doctors, you can find it on my YouTube channel. For now, it's still up. There's been a purge over the last several weeks, a new renewed purge. But since I started doing the streams, I've had a lot of growth for now. And you can watch that at youtube.com/Michelle Malkin. And all credit again to the American Workers Coalition for bringing so many people together so that they know that they're not alone. I think that's the hugest thing here in building an America First movement is the networking, and the Moms of American Workers Coalition have been fabulous on that. Kris, you get the last word. I'm going to put up your information here, and I'm going to lobby you off air, but I just want to mention too that there is a great America First student, Jaden McNeil, who's been under fire at Kansas State University. I'm going to send you some information on that. This is a kid who has been standing up for all of the issues that we're fighting for. This is about the future. And there are conservatives in your state who are throwing future leaders like this under the bus as some sort of futile way to appease the unappeasable. And it all is of a piece. And I know all of us have been doing our part to raise our voices against this mob. We've been fighting it in many different aspects over the years, but it's reached a pitch level. I don't know what you're feeling about this, Kris, and we haven't had a chance to catch up in a while, but I've never seen it as dangerous and toxic an environment in America as we've seen right now.
I think it's true all over the country. Everybody's on pins and needles, and here we are in the middle of a campaign in the middle of the coronavirus shutdown. It's bizarre. But in my particular race, as I mentioned earlier, it's highly likely whoever wins the primary will win the general. Republicans have had the seat for a long time. The polling shows that pretty much whichever Republican candidate wins will win by about a 10% margin if the polling holds true in the general. So we're in a dogfight in this primary. The primary day is August 4th, but advanced voting begins 2 weeks from today. So we're already in the final sprint. The polling shows me and my main Rhino opponent, Roger Marshall, within the margin of error. We're talking just low single digits apart from each other, and depending which poll you look at, you see me ahead or you see him ahead. So if people watching this broadcast want to help, this is definitely a case where every dollar helps, because we're putting it straight up onto the airwaves as we continue to make our final media buys. It's kriskobach.com, KRISKOBACH.com. Obviously is the website. It's definitely going to have an effect for our movement for sure. I'm hearing some audio difficulty.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that's coming from. Anyway, if people want to help in the race, I think that's the easiest way, the best way right now, and make a contribution today, and then we'll give props to AWC for making these happen. And the same with my other two colleagues here, future Senate colleagues, make that contribution today. We'll know that it was because of the American Workers Coalition effort that those contributions came through. But it really does have an effect. I can tell you that when you're in the stage of a campaign and you're just sprinting for the finish, every additional $20 contribution, $50 contribution makes a difference, because they add up very quickly. So Michelle, thank you for all that you've done for the movement to protect American workers, and of course, thank you to the American Workers Coalition. We all need to team up now and sprint to the finish, and we'll make some changes when we get there.
Sounds good. We need each and every one of you. Kris, Lauren, Tricia, appreciate your time. Good luck with your campaign. We'll be following you, and God bless. Take care.
Thanks, Michelle.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.